Hey there, and welcome to another one of my videos. With the Christmas season coming around, it kind of got me to thinking about more aspiring musicians and kind of the quest to find a decent instruments that you can play on. The problem is that either you have a well-meaning person who gives you an instrument that they have that isn't all that great, or you can only afford a cheap instrument. Usually, the problem with that is because usually to get a good instrument that's really nice, that's good playability, you have to spend about $500. And not everybody has that. So what do you do when you don't have that sort of money? Well, for this video, I kind of brought what I call my work guitar. Guitar came from work. Really cheap, I think Main Street Guitar Company or something like that. I don't think they're even in business anymore, but a cheap old guitar. But it has cheap tuners, but it has a decent sound to it. And so how do you kind of make your instrument sound better when it's not a high-grade instrument? And that has to do a lot with setup. Setup for almost any kind of instrument is the big key. Because even a really nice guitar or instrument or banjo that's not set up properly just doesn't sound good. That's just how it is with an instrument. And so one of the big things is, if you're looking for a guitar or you have one, make sure it has a truss rod. Like a lot of them will have a little cover up here. Like this one does not, and a lot of the newer guitars are not having it there. Instead they have inside the body, right underneath here, you can kind of tell it. There's an Allen wrench setting, and that's where you can stick an Allen wrench in and you adjust the truss rod there. And then what the truss rod does is it will adjust the bow of your neck. So either bow in or out. And that affects your height here. You can also change the height that's closer up to the nut by changing the nut height. And then down here is more your bridge height. Now, raising the bridge isn't too difficult with these kind of guitars, because usually you can take out the center little rib and you can lay a thin piece of wood underneath it. And that usually will raise it up more than well enough that it'll to whatever height you want. If it's too high and you're not real comfortable with that, most music shops will kind of do adjustments for not too much money on your instrument. The other thing too is have new strings in your guitar. This guitar does not currently have new strings, but they haven't been worn too much. But that will affect a lot in the kind of strings you get too. I kind of like elixirs on guitars because they just feel better. But the nice thing with strings is they don't cost a whole lot for the most part, unless you get some really weird ones. But for the most part, they're fairly inexpensive, and they allow you to kind of mess around and play with them. Like this one, I think these are just the phosphor bronze version. They have a nice sound to them. Another thing that you might notice with your instrument is the frets aren't quite the right height. And some frets will be a little higher than others, and that will cause buzz when you're playing. That's weird with the camera. And that can sometimes be affected. A lot of times what you want is a cable. It's just a simple Dunlap cable, I think. It's what the music store carried. I didn't want to order one. But like in A, this guitar has a little bit cleaner sound to it because the frets are a little more even when you're playing the G chord shape. And you can go and have your frets filed. That usually most music shops won't do per se unless they have an actual luthier on staff, which bigger music shops do. I just have kind of local ones, and some do and some don't. But that also costs a bit more than just normal setup, because you usually have to have a file and you file them all. You have a really nice straight level to make sure they're all even. It takes time. Filing frets is not fun. I went and kind of fixed the guitar and put frets on it, and yeah, that was an experience. But I kind of hope this video helps you a bit. Because, yeah, but if you don't have your frets filed, you can put your capo kind of and adjust it to where it kind of avoids spots where the frets are higher and they cause a buzz. It's not quite ideal, but if you're just starting out and you're not playing with anyone, it helps you be able to play on your guitar or your banjo or any instrument you have without having to spend too much money right off the bat. Because that's usually what happens. Is that's another thing too, you know, maybe you don't want to play it anymore, but you don't want to spend so much money trying to just find out if you want. And this is a nice quick way. You don't have to spend a lot of money to actually start gaining some enjoyment from playing with your instrument. I guess that's all for right now. Thank you for watching. Bye.